Hi there, my name is Sara, and thank you for joining me in my new YouTube space where I'm going to be talking about my knitting and my sewing and my fiber and crafting life here in New York City. I live here with my boyfriend and my mom and our two cats, and I am a graduate student, so I'm on summer break right now, and it felt like a great time to dip my toe into producing my own YouTube podcast and sharing more about my fiber and crafting loves with the YouTube community. And I will probably also start posting on Instagram, though that is even scarier to me because I am really not a very big social media person. So this is scary, but exciting, and I feel like it's the right time for me to kind of put myself out there because I just have so many things that I'm excited about and that I want to talk to people about and connect with people instead of just kind of lurking in the comment area as I've been doing for years. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about sewing and knitting. I'm a much newer sewist than I am a knitter. I started sewing last October really, November. But I'll talk about that at the end because I figure probably most people will be here for the yarny goodness. And I have a lot to talk about because this is my first video. So I tried to kind of cap it. I obviously didn't. I'm not going to talk about all of my finished objects for the full year or anything like that, but I have at least 4 finished objects that I want to talk about, and 3 or 4 whips, and then I'll talk about a few of the upcoming things I'm working on or that I'm planning to cast on, and then sewing. I'll just talk about one sewing project that I've recently finished that I'm actually wearing, and what I'm about to cut up on my cutting table. Great. So should I go in chronological order? I'll go with the thing I finished most recently, which is the Nellie top by Spektakelstrik. I'll have the description in the all the information in the description box. But this is the top. It is a garter stitch tank top that is knit back and forth. I knit it with 2 strands of Knitting for Olive's soft silk, of their silk base. So it was 2 strands held together in the color quince. And I made no modifications to this. It's a size medium, and it's actually a gift for my sister. I haven't blocked it yet, and I hope it fits her. I tried it on and it fit me, and she's just a bit smaller than me, so I think it should be great for her. This is actually my second time knitting this pattern. I knit it previously in Rowan's Creative Linen. I knit it last year. It's a really fast garter knit. I believe it's a worsted weight gauge, and like I said, I knit it double of a fingering weight, and that did the trick for me. So yeah, like I said, it has a kind of interesting construction because maybe I shouldn't give too much away, but yes, it's knit. You seam it at the end. You knit it in 2 pieces, and it's super easy. It's not a size inclusive pattern, which is very unfortunate. And I bought the pattern before I knew what to look out for in knitting designers and patterns that I want to be working on. And my sister just really loved my finished tank top last year and really wanted one. So that is that. Maybe I don't think I'll give it to her by the time I plan to upload this. Otherwise I would have added a photo. I like the Knitting for Olive silk. I think it's obviously incredibly popular. summer yarn. I am not obsessed with it, and I think that there are a lot of other great summer yarns. I don't think this needs to be the end all be all. Like, it's great, but I wonder if it's a little overhyped, but again, I haven't blocked it yet. I don't know how it will wear, but like, I don't particularly prefer this 100% silk to a linen silk blend. And I have a couple more of those to talk about next. So that's the Nellie top. Not much else to say about it, except that it's simple, it's fast. I wear mine all the time. So there's that. The next finished object I have is the Jessie Maed mini mock neck tank. Here it is, horribly creased and also unblocked. I knit this in Kelborn Wool's Mojave, which is a linen blend, and it's in the color Dandelion. I am really into primary colors right now, and I just love this shade of yellow. I knit this in the size of 1X, and it fits perfectly well, exactly how I meant it to, and with no ease. I made no modifications. I did the tubular bind off for the top, which you can see here, and also for the bottom. And it wasn't too tight to get over my head. I know that I think Jessie put a note about it possibly being too tight for some folks, and I didn't have that problem. But again, I didn't block it yet. I am intrigued about how much it will stretch, given that it is a blend and it's a summer yarn. But like, when I hold obviously this is garter and this is stockinette, but when I kind of prefer the feeling of the Mojave and the linen over the silk, but I feel like I might be in the minority opinion. I don't know. I think this is like maybe there's cotton in this too, because it's very soft, it's very cooling. They're both great. It's probably just personal preference. And what else would I say about this? So the top of the Jessie Maed pattern, and again, I don't want to give too much away, is knit back and forth, and then when you split for the sleeves here, or the armholes, then you're knitting in the round. And I did have some rowing out, that it's totally possible that blocking will fix. I watched Alexandra's Garns video a couple weeks ago about her problems with rowing out, and the way that she just adjusted one of her needles, the one that she would use for her purling, and how that totally fixed her gauge and her rowing out. And I'm intrigued to try that. I think I haven't noticed that I have a rowing out issue with my pearls because I knit in the round so often, and with yarns that kind of cover that a little bit more, it seems like you're more likely to really notice that with a cotton or a linen. And yeah, but I'm sure blocking will help somewhat, and I don't find it too distracting. I don't really, those kind of things don't bother me. I don't need my handmade wardrobe to feel like totally perfect, and yeah, I don't mind if I can notice that it's handmade. That's welcomed, I think. Is there anything else to say about this? The pattern is great. It's incredibly clear. I think it's fingering weight, so it took kind of longer than I expected, honestly, and I think I knit it while on vacation, and then kind of finished it when I got back, and it took me longer than I thought it was going to, because it's just a lot of it's just a lot of knitting around and a little bit of like a slow burn, but then you don't have sleeves, and that's great. So in the relative scheme of like sweater knitting or something like that, it's obviously much slower, but because it was fingering weight, and the previous summer, all the other summer garments I have made were on slightly thicker needles, I think I just was kind of used to just like whipping through my whips or my summer projects. But great things to say. I think I'm gonna wear it a lot, and we'll see how the yarn holds up over time. It's a new to me yarn, as was the Knitting for Olive silk. So I guess I really shouldn't be comparing them until I've kind of worn through them a little bit, but going off of my initial touch and the knitting experience, I think I prefer the Mowry. Except I thought of another thing. Sorry, this is a little bit scattered, but when I was weaving in doing my tubular bind off, because you're using a darning needle and weaving in and out so much, the yarn really started kind of breaking and splitting for the Mowry yarn, which was kind of annoying, but ended up not being that much of an issue. And it actually wasn't an issue at all for the bind off on the top, because the circumference is so much smaller, but for the bottom, by probably like 3/4 of the way through the bind off, I think I had to like add in, like use a new piece of yarn, because it had kind of fallen apart. But that was kind of small potatoes for me, given how much I enjoyed it otherwise. Great. So the item before that I finished was a test knit, and it was the Thelma top by Le Pole. And this is, oh goodness, this could have used a steam, but it is that kind of tailored vest look that is oh so trendy nowadays. And yeah, here it is again. I'll put it up close so you can see the buttons and the texture. I knit this in Handspun Hope's Ethiopian cotton, which they're a very cool company. I believe it's all handspun in Rwanda, but I could be wrong. I discovered their brand at Vogue Knitting Live this past year and bought their cotton. It's very kind of slubby. There are thick and thin parts of the yarn, but it was great for the texture of this project. I had it in stash, and when I got picked for the test knit, I was excited because I knew that it kind of, the designer's sample that she had already made was also with a kind of thick and thin yarn, and I just loved being able to pull this from stash and use it. This is in the color Shallot, and there is a pretty obvious dye lot switch, which I'm sure you can see. It's obvious, but that's fine. I've worn it multiple times and gotten many a compliment, and no one is like, it's striped. So I think it's fine. I think the yarn is kind of, I've worn it a few times already, and I'm pretty sure the armholes have already stretched. I think the cotton is pretty prone to growing. The pattern was good. I really don't think it's beginner friendly. I think it kind of relies on someone's familiarity with how to read a pattern and how to follow it, and it doesn't hold your hand. It's knit back and forth, and then you at the end you'll sew in your buttons. These are these cute little triangle buttons. that are red that I got from Gather Here, which is a wonderful yarn and fabric store in Cambridge, Massachusetts that I got when I was visiting a friend there. The other feature of this pattern are these like faux pockets that are cute. They don't really serve a particular function, but they're cute. They were kind of annoying to figure out how to knit. I struggled with the instructions and had to kind of do them a couple times. So overall, I've worn this, like I said, a few times, and it feels very trendy, and it was like fast enough. I think I'm just generally going to try to steer clear of overly trendy pieces going forward. I don't think I'm a particularly like trendy dresser, but it's always nice when like a yarn ends up being perfect for a sample or a test knit or something, a pattern that you really want to do, and you just kind of can pull from your stash, which is what this was. I'm not sure I would have done the test knit if I didn't know that I had such a great yarn for it. But again, it's already stretching out quite a bit, which is a bummer, but the company is very cool. I'm pretty sure it's a nonprofit or a B3, or is that what they're called? I'm not sure, but it's a cool organization and it's a fun project. I'll try to insert a photo of me wearing it. Yeah. Next up is my June top by Petite Knit, of course. Here it is. It's a very, very basic. It looks really terrible right now, but that's because I've worn it a lot. It's actually for a few reasons. One, I've worn it quite a bit. And two, I cast on with, I think it's size 4 millimeter needle, and then went down to a size 3.75 because I didn't like the fabric it was creating. I thought it was a little bit too gapey, and so the like you can kind of see that the bottom of the tank is a little bit flary. Maybe you can't, but it is. I don't mind. I've been kind of doing a French tuck with it when I wear it, and it's just a really good simple base layer. There's really not much to say about the June top that hasn't already been said. I knit this with Magpie Fibers Equinox Sport base, which is totally lovely. It feels more like the Mojave that I talked about before. It's really cool in your hands. This is the size XL, and I didn't make any modifications except that I did not do the I-cord at the bottom, which I should do because that might help with the flaring out a little bit. I got this yarn at the Magpie Fiber flagship studio. I went down with my boyfriend and my boyfriend's family to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival this past April or May, and got to go to the Magpie store in person, which was so fun. I'm such a fan of that company and their employees, and yeah, I followed them really closely, so that was delightful. And I cast this on like the last day of the festival and was just kind of knitting in the round. It's knit bottom up, so that's kind of nice. That was nice for my car knitting because I could just cast on the stitches and just go. I think this took me like a week, which is probably why the mini mock knit felt long. I wish the straps were a little bit thicker. They kind of curl in where the I-cord is, and so they like if it stayed this thick, that would be great, but the I-cords kind of roll it in, and so it ends up being just like a little bit too thinner than I would want for straps, so it doesn't fully cover my bra, but it does if I like set it in there. Yeah, I've worn this a lot. It's a really simple gray tank top. The only thing I would say about this yarn, besides the fact that it's wonderful, is that the dye came off on my fingers while I was knitting, which I was kind of surprised by. But like, I was knitting and then I would look down and I had like very clear gray marks where the dye was probably rubbing off in my possibly sweaty hands. But that was fine. I just washed it and it went away. I don't think this is quite... I think I would have still liked a slightly denser gauge. Like, it's somewhat opaque. Can you see that at all? But as for the color, it's washed out for sure in the camera. It's a much more like charcoal steel gray than it's coming up on camera. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that one. Okay, now for the whips. The first whip that I have is the October sweater by Petite Knit. I just cast this on because I was kind of feeling done with summer knits, and I felt like yeah, I was kind of done with them. I prefer generally the feel of wool, even though this is not wool, this is alpaca, but I'll get into that. And I just missed sweater knitting. I think it was more missing sweater knitting than it was not wanting to knit with summer yarns, because I don't mind knitting with summer yarns, really. It was more like I missed the comfort of a full-on sweater project. And I was really excited to use up this yarn because it has been sitting in my stash since about this time last year. So the yarn that I'm using is the Galler Yarns Heather Prime Alpaca, I think, in the color Tundra. And it is the most beautiful heathering. It's like it's definitely green. I think it's showing up a little bit more brown on the camera, but it's definitely green with lots of orange and red, like heathered tweedy bits. Here's the little bit left of this skein that you can see. So it's 100% alpaca, which means that it does kind of have a little bit of a floofy halo that you can see there. I have never knit with, actually that's not true. I knit with this yarn for a hat for a gift last year, so I don't have it anymore to kind of touch it and remember. But it is floofy and the color is so, I'm obsessed with the color. I really feel like I haven't seen much heathering like it, but it sheds quite a bit, which I think is very normal for alpaca. And it's a DK weight. It's kind of a light DK, I would say, but I got gauge perfectly for the October sweater, which is great. And I'm at the point in the project where I'm just still increasing with my raglan stitches. It probably will be about time for me to, wow, it really looks, it's coming out really washed out and much like beiger than it is. It's green. So I will try to find a photo that I could insert. Yeah, I don't have much to say about the pattern yet because I'm not that far into it, but it's Petite Knit. I find her instructions to be super clear, and I think it'll be great. So I just feel like I'm officially transitioning out of my summer knitting era and prepping for fall. The that was like 4 tank tops that I just talked about knitting. So that's a decent amount of summer knitting. One's not for me, but I feel like I've done a good amount of summer knitting, experimenting with summer yarns, and I don't think it's bad if I start prepping my fall wardrobe. Wonder if my head looks too small here, whether I need to be a bit closer to the camera. Sorry if that was so shaky. So that's one whip. My next whip is a little bit further along. So it is a sock. It is the Curio sock by Andrea Mowry. And my cute little sunflower stitch markers. I really only use them on my sock needles, my metal sock needles, because they totally will poke through a bag. Here's where I'm at. So it's a toe-up sock with an afterthought heel, and it's knit with 2 different yarns. And I am using Arvetta by Filcolana. This is the vanilla color. It's a very pale, yeah, that's about right. It's like a pale yellow. And Spin Cycle dyed in the wool in the color Fuzzy Navel, which I haven't seen since last summer them selling, but it's full of pinks and yellows, and I actually used it in my Shifty sweater that I made earlier this year, and this is some of my leftover. So yeah, it's a color changing yarn. I'm sure you've seen Spin Cycle. And I'm kind of referring to these as like my pink lemonade socks because, well, hopefully it's obvious. This is the first sock, or the first foot. And so I'm working on the cuff right now. There's some slip stitches, it's stockinette, and it's pretty simple. I've only ever knit Andrea Mowry socks, which means I've also only ever knit toe-up socks. I've knit the DRK and the Bear Paw socks a few times, and this is my first time knitting the Curio sock. And so those other 2 ones are ribbed. This is actually my first stockinette sock, even though it's not fully stockinette, I guess, because you have these 2 rows of the slipped stitches, but it's going by really quickly. I cast it on like a week ago, and probably more like 2 weeks ago now, but I'm really thinking about it as just, I kind of want to always have a pair of socks on the needles, and it's the project that I'm grabbing when I'm at a section of my other projects that is not particularly portable, or yeah, so I'm in kind of no rush to finish this. It's kind of my background project, but it's great. I love Andrea Mowry patterns. I love how she writes, and I really trust her sizing. So that's always nice when you really kind of trust the fit of something. And in a designer, it just kind of takes the stress out of wondering whether or not things are going to fit the way you want them to. Getting this needle stopper back on there. Aren't they just so cute? Okay, my next whip, I have some shame around because there's no reason it should still be on the needles. I cast this on in April, around Easter. I was visiting my family in Berkeley, California, and I visited the Oakland shop, A Verb for Keeping Warm, which is just such a really special place and store and company. I highly recommend you check them out. They make really luxurious hand-dyed, natural dyed products, and yeah, I can't recommend them highly enough. And the in-person store is only open on Saturdays for like a few hours, and I go whenever I'm visiting my family. It's just kind of a known thing in my family that like on Saturday Sarah will be gone for a little bit. This is the Shawl by also Andrea Mowry, and this is in the Annapurna, or even tinier Annapurna, by A Verb for Keeping Warm. This is one, they sell other brands, but they also have their own yarns that they dye. So this is their yarn. It is, oh, I can't remember the content, but it's light fingering weight, and this is the color Vermilion, and it is just, I'm not like a pink person. I'm, as you can probably tell even just by my background, I'm a very earth-toned, browns, burnt oranges kind of gal, sagey greens. Oh, it's not fully representative of what I've talked about so far in this video, but this is like just the most beautiful shade of pink. And again, it's the Ara shawl. It's knit and garter with these like lace ridges. I started it in California, I think on the plane home. And I've just gotten distracted by things, and there's really no reason to leave this hanging. I've adored working on it, and I adore the yarn. There's no good excuse. I really should go back to it. And it's in this really adorable quilted pouch from the company Mabel. I've seen her at Wool and Folk last year for Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Weekend, as well as Vogue Knitting Live. I think she'll be at Wool and Folk again this year, so I'll definitely be getting another one of her quilted bags. But that's the Ara shawl. I really don't have that much more to go, so I really should just get back to it. But it's like a, I don't know, 7/8 stitch row repeat, but like barely. I mean, it's garter with some lace ridges, so it's not really a repeat, but I always like kind of forget where I am when I pick it back up, and it's not a complicated one to just kind of look at and figure out. It's just one more step in that's like a roadblock in my head to getting back into it. But there's not really a rush. It's fine. It's fine. I think that's gonna be it for whips. There's another one that I could talk about, but I think I'm actually gonna wait. I should talk about that hopefully I'll make a second video. Who knows? So I'll talk about the things that I'm excited to work on next. First is the Tessellated vest, which is Andrea Mowry's like Rhinebeck 2023 pattern. She released a sweater and a vest, and she did a collab, which she always does with Spin Cycle. In the past it's been with Magpie, and this year it's with Moondrake and with Farmer's Daughter Fibers. So I'm gonna do the vest. I've never done the sweater before. Well, last year was my first sheep and wool, so it would have only been, I didn't do it last year. But here is my color palette, and I love it. I totally love it. I like spent a lot of time thinking about what colors I want to do, and this is not a palette that like this is not a me color. But I can like recognize that it's totally beautiful. And I love how it looks with this. I think it was definitely inspired by Brooke Willow's Flower Power sweater that she recently did by Deegan. She did like a reddy brown base with like a pale blue accent for the flower decal. So the main color is this Sokapi by Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and this is their color Flower Point, I believe. It's showing up a little bit more orangey in the camera than it is. It's a bit more red and a little bit more rusty. But yes, this is the Sokapi. It's 100% wool. It's a fingering weight as opposed to the sport, which the pattern calls for, but I had no issue with that. This is Fua Fua, which is also what the pattern calls for. Actually, it does not call for Sokapi. It calls for the like Moon Spun or the Spinster's Daughter, which was the yarn collab. This is one of the called for yarns. It's Fua Fua by Moondrake, which is this cashmere, like most luxurious, floofy, special yarn. This is in the color, I think, Frozen. And then finally, my dyed in the wool is Every Rose, and I really want it mostly for the yellowy bits, and I'll probably do more color managing than I'm used to, but I did do a gauge swatch. I forgot to grab it, it's in the other room. I think the pattern called for 3.5 millimeter needles, and I did not get gauged with that. I had to go up to 3.75, and that was perfect. I will probably cast on when I finish the October sweater. And I'm really excited about it. I'm excited that I can participate without making a full sweater. I really hope that this combo of colors will give me like a very 70s style vest. That's kind of what I'm going for. And yeah. So the last thing that I am planning to cast on soon is a teddy bear. Our dear friends just had their first baby, and I want to make them a teddy bear. And so I got these two yarns from Sendness Garn. This is Perfect and this is Smart. They're both superwash. The Perfect has nylon in it, but the Smart does not. I would have gotten them both in the Perfect. It's a DK weight, but the shade of green that I really wanted was only in the non-nylon superwash. And this is gonna be for overalls. I'm making a little corduroy bear. And I picked the pattern that I'm gonna use, but I don't remember what it was called. I'll link it, but I haven't bought it yet and I haven't swatched, but I really don't think it's gonna take me a long time. I have a bunch of stuffing left over from when I made some knit pumpkins last fall that I will use, and I can also maybe throw in some scraps to stuff it, but I think it'll be really cute. I plan to also send the bear with the picture book. And I think my boyfriend's gonna pick his favorite children's book, and maybe I'll knit a version of the character from whatever book that is. So that's also coming up. And last but not least, sewing. So I'm so excited about this finished object, which is the Birgitta Helmersson Zero Waist Gather Dress. And here, I'll stand up and show you. This was 100% inspired by Brooke Willow. She made this dress, I think last year, but wore it in a video somewhat couple months ago. Maybe it was a year ago. And it's the item that really inspired me to start sewing. It's what inspired me to ask for a sewing machine and to start sewing. And it's not the first item I sewed because I kind of wanted to build my way up to it, but it's what I'm most proud of. It was definitely, I was sewing like a lot of elastic waist pants and like an Ogden cami and some pretty simple sews. And this was a big step up for me, which showed in how many issues I had sewing it, which is a complete reflection of my naivete maybe, and luckily I have an incredible sewing instructor. She has a beautiful sewing studio in Hastings and Hudson, New York that I frequently go to, and I took some lessons with her. Her name's Bettina. If you're in the New York area and you want to learn how to sew or have a sewing conundrum, go to Bettina. And this was my first project with, it was my first dress, it was my first project with gathers, it was my first project with buttons, and I had a lot of issues with all those things because they were my first time doing them. But I would just kind of take it back to Bettina and she would help me, and everything went smoothly in the end. I didn't end up doing the buttonholes because I sewed them incorrectly, and then when I went to Bettina, we basically decided that instead of undoing the whole button band, which was gonna be not fun and potentially ruin the garment, that we should just use her machine to put on snap buttons, which I love and feel very sturdy and was a great fix to my silliness. And so the pattern is really special because it's a zero waste garment. So you have like a big rectangle and she gives you the dimensions, there's nothing to cut out, and you don't have scraps, which is also why it's a little bit stressful. Like with the button band, if you do something wrong, you don't have extra fabric to cut out, like just recut that piece out, which is part of the reason why I love the garment. It's great to have no scraps, but it also can be more stressful because you know that messing up on the pieces feels a little bit more consequential. The fabric I got is a yarn dye, 100% linen from Stone Mountain and Daughter, which is a store based in Berkeley. I got it from their online shop though. And it's kind of a midweight to heavyweight linen, I think. I am excited because I see myself wearing this dress into the fall, but I've also worn it like, it feels like every day this past week in the summer. Mine goes down to like my elbows, and I didn't make any modifications except I used snaps and not buttons. I know that you couldn't see the bottom of it when I stood up, but it goes down to like my mid calf. It's kind of between a midi and a maxi length, and I feel very comfortable in it. I feel like myself. I feel very proud that this was the project that like really drew me into the craft, and I've done it. And yeah, so that's exciting. Here's the fabric for the next piece that I want to make. I want to make the Orchard dress by Vivian. I can't remember her last name, but I will link it. This is a lightweight cotton, I think. Yeah, it is. That I also got from Stone Mountain and Daughter, but I got it in person as opposed to this, which I ordered online. And I bought 3 yards of it when I was in California at the same time that I went to a Verb for Keeping Warm. And it's the brand Koka Co. It's a Japanese brand. And again, my primary color era. It has these florals, and so the Orchard dress is a tiered sleeveless dress that has a few buttons, and I just want a breezy, easy summer dress. Hope maybe I'll insert a photo, but yes, that is everything. I feel like I've talked for a long time. I've been kind of rambly, and I'm sure I also forgot something or a lot of things, but thank you for watching. I am excited to see what this channel might become. I'm just really excited to talk about the things that I'm working on and to hopefully share them with you and to connect with you about what you're working on. I would love to know. And if you have any other questions about any of the things I talked about, please feel free to reach out. Obviously, this is my first time doing this. I'm new to it all. If you have any suggestions or feedback, I would welcome it. And I just hope to make this a more regular thing. I hope you're enjoying your summer, staying warm, staying cool, excuse me, and that you are getting to make things that you love. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.